Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. We have what I would describe as some actually kind of good news. Presidential debates are actually happening. Biden threw down the gauntlet and Trump accepted, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we'll get into all of that. RFK Jr. also trying to get on the stage, even though they are very much aggressively trying to block him.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to discuss there and why this is all happening. We also have some extreme levels of cope that are happening over on both CNN, but in particular over at Morning Joe over that New York Times CNN poll that we covered earlier this week, which is an absolute train wreck for Joe Biden. So we will show you that. Also some bad and also interesting news from overseas. The Slovakian Prime Minister, Robert Fico, he was shot in an attempted assassination effort. He is now appears to be recovering and on his way, hopefully, to full recovery. But extraordinary circumstances and a lot of indications about what might have been behind the motive for that attack. We'll get into that. Red Lobster is going bankrupt because Americans take all you can eat a little too seriously, guys, out there. When it came to shrimp, we were all in, and Red Lobster was apparently not ready for that.
We went too far, folks. America's never been greater than it is today.
R.I.P. Red Lobster. We also have some additional, perhaps more significant corporate news, which is that Boeing could actually be facing criminal prosecution now after the government officially said, a judge officially said that they had violated the consent decree that they had with the federal government. That opens them up to all sorts of charges, in particular over those crashes that caused hundreds of fatalities a few years back. So we'll get into that and what that could mean. A lot of news coming out of Israel. Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant really throwing down with Bibi Netanyahu. We'll take you inside what that is all about and what it potentially means. By the way, the U.S. siding with Yoav Gallant. We also have some horrifying images of how settlers beat a Palestinian truck driver because they suspected he might be bringing aid to Gaza. We also have an update on the pier, guys. Looks like the long anticipated and much vaunted pier for humanitarian aid is actually complete. So what does that mean and what is that going to look like going forward? Break that down for you as well.
Yes, that's right. Okay, before we get to that, we have two important things. First and foremost, Counterpoints had an amazing interview with Beto O'Rourke, former presidential candidate. Beto, formerly best known, I think, for standing on large services. Emily, Ryan, and him had an amazing discussion. So if you want to check that out, it's dropping to our premium subscribers early. And then this is a special message to our premium subscribers. I'm going to reiterate this, and I'm going to ask that you pay attention. We have a major announcement coming. As we have said, you need to check your email on Sunday. All right, so Sunday, please check your email. And usually you guys are used to getting your AMA email. There's gonna be something special inside of that. So that's for our premium subscribers only. Please take a listen. We will be sending you reminders and all of that. But if you hear this, just put that up in your head, put it on your calendar and mark the date because something is coming.
Make sure you check out that email. There will be some small action required from you, but I think you're gonna be really excited about what you find there as well. And also with regards to Counterpoints and Beto, we haven't watched this one yet. Apparently, Emily and Beto really got into it on immigration.
Yes, yes.
So I'm very, very interested to see how that all went down.
Absolutely.
Last
all
one
right.
passed, Beto O'Rourke.
Let's get to the debates, as Krystal said. So yesterday was kind of a flurry of debate news. Clearly, it was prearranged, at least some. So President Joe Biden releasing a video from his campaign account taunting Donald Trump to a debate, but in different circumstances than you may have expected. Here's what he had to say.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
All right, you're free on Wednesdays. He's taunting him. The Biden malarkey energy is back.
The push-ups.
Yeah,
what was
whatever.
it?
Look fat.
Look fat. So that's it.
One of his, frankly, best moments, I think. So what does all this mean? Now, I'm actually particularly excited about it because what this means actually, and what you didn't hear there, were some of the details. Let's put this up there on the screen. This was actually a letter that was sent at the very same time, the release of that video, from the Biden campaign to the Commission on Presidential Debates. Now, in this letter, President Biden and the campaign informs the CPD they will not be participating in the Commission on Presidential Debates preset schedule. This is the organization which has run presidential debates since the 1980, after the League of Women Voters dropped out, after they accused campaigns of coordinating with each other. In my opinion, this has always been a travesty. The Commission on Presidential Debates is basically run by the RNC and the DNC. It's totally rigged. It has establishment politicians. It has all of these major Fortune 500 donors, and they have rigged the process to keep people out. And this basically shakes things up and makes a negotiation between the two campaigns as to how this is going to work. Now, there are some downsides to this, as we will get to with RFK Jr., but some of the reasoning that they give here is that they believe that the commission's schedule has the debates begin after the American people have their first chance to cast votes early. That is true, especially because the third debate is well into late October. Second, this is interesting. I really want to hear what you have to say, Krystal. They say that the commission's model of building huge spectacles with large audiences at great expense is not necessary or conducive to good debates. And in it, they say they don't want donors or a live audience. So they want it to take place purely in a studio, a la the 1960 Nixon-Kennedy debate, or in modern times, I guess the last one that we've seen anything like this was the March of 2020 Joe Biden versus Bernie Sanders debate that took place in the CNN studio with no live audience. So the third and the final one is that they're still very upset with the commission over COVID and handling of COVID, so basically saying that they allowed Trump to attend the first debate while he attended COVID.
That's true. And I think that's fair.
It's probably
he
true.
could have very easily killed Joe Biden at that point.
I'll take it because now the commission is dead. This is a terrible, antiquated tradition. The two campaigns now have agreed to two dates. Let's put that up there on the screen. The first and foremost was from CNN. This will be the very first presidential debate, June 27th at 9 p.m. No audience. The moderators have now been announced. It's Dana Bash and Jake Tapper, and it will live stream on CNN and I guess on HBO Max.
So that's going to be a great Israel conversation that they lead there.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we'll separate the moderator stuff, but I'm curious what you think specifically about the audience thing and why Biden is insisting on that.
Okay, so on the audience thing, I do actually think it's better not to have the audience in the room because, I mean, it does just sort of like stack the deck depending on, and oftentimes, as is sort of indicated there, who you'll have in the audience is like the big donors for the campaigns. They have a very different agenda than the rest of America. That came out a lot actually in 2016, remember, in the Republican debate?
Well,
and Trump would directly call out like, oh yeah, well those are Jeb Stoners basically in the audience. That's why they think that way. So I think it's better just not to have the audience so that people at home have more of an opportunity just to judge for themselves without cheering, booing, et cetera, and an audience that may be clearly slanted one way or another. So on the audience thing, I think that's right. I guess I'm a little more ambivalent about the destruction of the Presidential Debate Commission because now it's like, okay, well, instead of them rigging it, it's the two candidates themselves colluding to rig it. So is that really better? I don't really know if it's better or worse or whatever, but I'm just glad that they're agreeing to some debates because there was a massive question. I mean, there is still a lot of logic to Joe Biden not doing these debates. I think he's doing it because basically he's down. He saw that after his State of the Union performance, it was good enough that he appeared to get a little bit of a temporary bump in the polls. And so I think he realizes that, you know, if he has an opportunity, actually performs well and exceeds expectations. And again, we're not talking about him being like, you know, the best debater of all time, but the expectations for him are so low that if he can surpass those very minimal on the floor expectations, that may inure to his benefit. But, you know, the speculation is that the timing of the debates is also very intentional on his part. Because it's on the one hand, okay, I get the opportunity to show like I'm not going to just literally like collapse and die on the stage and I can formulate at least like half coherent sentences. On the other hand, if it doesn't go well, there's a lot of time between these debates and when the bulk of the people will actually vote so that I can hopefully recover from any potential disasters from the debate performance. That's kind of the theory that's out there. I think Nate Silver and others were floating that. I basically buy into that. I think that makes some logical, like straightforward sense.
It makes some sense. I mean, I went back and I re-reviewed all of the political science. I mean, there's just basically no evidence that these debates matter. And what's actually even more interesting is that whatever moments the media decides are the game-changing moments, even back to the 80s in the monoculture moment, they're like, those have no impact on the
They usually have a temporary impact on the polls, and then it sort of reverts.
And then it reverts right back to where it is, and it turns out it all comes back to fundamentals. And especially in a more partisan age like where we are right now, there are very few undecided voters, and a lot of the data on undecided voters is that they don't particularly make up their minds on debates. Like said, I still think debates are very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're important not just because of what they mean for the horse race, but part of why Joe Biden has felt pressure character, for example, to at least do something on student loan debt is because he had to make those promises on a stage in the debates. I mean, there is other political science that shows, as much as these people break promises left and right, they are more likely to actually follow up and do something if they've promised it on the campaign trail, if they've promised it on a debate stage. So it doesn't just matter for like who's up or who's down or how do voters feel about these candidates. It can actually matter more for governance, which is even more important, and not to mention, you know, transparency. And I just want to offer the counter case for why it could be different this time and the debates could actually be more significant and meaningful, which is we have a very unique circumstance, which is one of the primary concerns about Joe Biden among voters is this man even capable of doing the job? So it's, you know, there are also obviously problems with him on policy, economics, Israel, et cetera. But one of the core concerns is just like, can he do it? And so because that is, in a very unique way, a central issue and concern in this campaign, I think perhaps the debates could be more impactful and more meaningful than they have been other times because the circumstances are so, you know, distinct and so unusual.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Let's put the next one up there on the screen in terms of what the other debate is going to be. Trump says, "It is my great honor to accept the CNN debate." He says, "Likewise, I accept ABC News debate against Crooked Joe on September 10th. Thank you, Donald Trump." So there we have it, June 27th and September 10th.
Now, Trump seemed like he was trying to push for another third debate on Fox News. Do you know what's going on with that?
So there is a third debate that was proposed by Fox and by Trump. Trump obviously wants to do as many debates as possible. Last time around, he actually wanted to add a fourth debate, even because he had to skip the second one over COVID. This time around, he wants to do, actually, as far as I know and understand, he wants to do literally as many as Biden is up for, which is kind of interesting in terms of the challenge that is being thrown down. Now, as you said, Biden has not committed to that Fox debate. It's very, very unlikely that he will do so. He said in that video, "I will only do 2 debates. Both of those, the justification for the campaign is there before early voting actually starts in all of them." So the September 27th debate, likely to be the most consequential of any if it is so. The ABC News debate will also stream live on all platforms and will be available to others, while CNN in peak CNN form is keeping it confined to the CNN universe. They won't allow others to stream it or any of that. So there will be more widely available. We'll see exactly what happens. Now, we would be remiss if we didn't talk here about RFK Jr. Let's put this up there on the screen. There's some confusion right now. So RFK Jr.'s initial response is that President Trump and Biden are colluding to lock America into a head-to-head matchup. 70% of people say they do not want. They're trying to exclude me from their debate because they're afraid that I would win. Keeping viable candidates off the stage undermines democracy. 43% of Americans identify independence. By excluding me from the stage, President Biden and Trump seek to avoid discussion of their 8 years of mutual failure, including deficits, wars, lockdowns, chronic disease, and inflation. But here's the thing. Late last night, he then puts out a tweet where he says, "I am happy to report I will meet the criteria to participate in the CNN debate before the June 20th deadline. I look forward to holding President Biden and Trump accountable for their records in Atlanta on June 27th to give Americans the debate that they deserve." So this brings us back to what the CNN debate qualifications actually are. Can we put A3, please, back on the screen so that I can explain a little bit of this? So CNN's announcement says that to qualify for participation, candidates must fulfill outlined in Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution. They must file a statement of candidacy with the FEC. A candidate's name must appear on a sufficient number of state ballots to reach 270 electoral vote threshold to win the presidency, and they must agree to accept the rules in the format, and they must receive 15% in 4 separate national polls or of registered or likely voters that meet CNN standards of reporting. Now, the 15% threshold is not going to be difficult for RFK Jr. It's the 270 ballot access initiative that matters the most. But the big question, Krystal, is if RFK Jr. does qualify, are they going to rig the rules? Is Biden going to pull out? Is Trump going to pull out? Because both Trump and Biden have made it very clear they do not want him there on the stage. And so I foresee some chicanery somewhere. If I had had to guess, it'll be that he has enough ballots to qualify for the ballot, but like, let's say maybe he hasn't officially, the state secretary of state hasn't signed it, so they'll use that as a pretext. But I mean, he's got California and Texas already. That's like 100 electoral votes right there.
Yeah.
You don't need a lot more. You just got to get on in the big states, New York, Ohio, a few others, and you're there. You're at 270.
Yeah, I mean, he should be on the stage. Like, that's the bottom line.
Obviously.
It's incredibly consequential. He could be determinative in terms of this election. He has demonstrated, significant levels of support, especially for a third-party candidate. He absolutely, in the interest of democracy, should be on the stage. Will he be on the stage? Highly doubt it.
I doubt it.
Because they thought they were rigging these rules to preclude him from having any chance of making it on. Apparently not that good at math, right? And listen, I think it's still a reach for him to get there by June 20th, even, by those standards. And that's because the two parties have also colluded to make it very difficult to get ballot access in these states. In New York, Dr. Jill Stein was telling us that New York actually just passed a law to make it even more difficult in New York to get on the ballot there. Obviously, that's a massive electoral prize in terms of the number of delegates that you get there. So yeah, the two parties have colluded to make it very, very difficult to get on these ballots. And then they use that collusion to also collude with CNN to try to block any third-party candidates from being on the stage. Because listen, it shouldn't just be Cornel West it shouldn't just be RFK Jr. on the stage. I think Jill Stein should be there. And I think if Cornel West is able to, get on a significant number of ballots, I think he should be there as well in the interest of, having a wide range of who's out there and people really having a choice and feeling like they're able to evaluate different positions from these different candidates. On an issue like Israel, RFK, Trump, and Biden are all like basically the same. So it'd be nice to have another candidate there to offer a different vision. And they're going to be aligned with CNN too, by the way, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. So in any case, the more democracy, the better. That's why I'm a little ambivalent about like the end of the presidential debate commission, because listen, they would probably do the same thing. They probably also don't really want RFK Jr. up on the stage, but there'd be a little bit more of a sense of like, these are the rules. We've laid them down. Everyone has to follow them, et cetera, versus this is just two campaigns negotiating for their own benefit. So like you said, there's trade-offs here.
I agree. My main thing is that it's structural. So for example, the Commission on Presidential Debates officially has, as its two members, the RNC and the DNC. That's nuts to me. You can't literally allow the two parties to be the only ones to negotiate. Now, this is why I celebrated when the RNC pulled out of the commission, and not to mention that the commercials and the sponsors for it are like they're like all these Fortune 500 companies. It's grotesque to look at it. To this day, Krystal, they have millions and millions of dollars of unspent money in their coffers. What do you think they're using that for? And that's where I think the Biden people are correct. In a certain sense, it's like a self-perpetuating machine where you donate to the commission, then you get to attend the Commission on Presidential Debates. And that's why you have all these big donors and billionaires. And who can't forget like all of the spectacles of the famous people who are in the audience. So yeah, the more that we just get rid of it, and if we have more debates, now I agree in the short term, it's not great, right? Like what do campaigns do? The reason the League of Women Voters stopped sponsoring the events or the campaigns debates was because the two campaigns, I think, I forget exactly who it was. They were found to be colluding with each other, and the league was like, we're not gonna deal with that. They're like, we have debates where we get to ask, the best questions. And if you go back and you watch them, they were so much better. So all I'm saying is this just make things a lot more interesting and possible. The other thing is that the mainstream media should be freaking out about this because they basically had a collusion with the CPD where you get to live cast everything on their networks, and obviously they could sell ad time and all these other things, and their anchors were the ones who were always considered. So this shake things up to basically allow and not disqualify the future candidates from participating in whatever forums that they want. So it's gonna be a lot more like the 1970s and 80s where people can just do anything. And in general, I think that's a good thing.
Maybe. I mean, it seems to me like we need to have just like major reform of the Presidential Debate Commission where it's truly independent, where it's not just, a tool of the RNC and the DNC and big donors, where there's legislation that compels these candidates to have to debate, because I think in the interest of democracy and all of us being able to evaluate our choices, I think that should be mandatory, not just at the presidential level, but at all levels. If you're seeking office, a very minimal that you should have to do is like present yourself to the voters and debate your opponent and like take seriously the democratic process. But obviously we're a long way from that. So is this an improvement? I don't know. We'll see.
We'll
see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I'm excited. I'm glad that they're actually going to do it.
That I'm glad about.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one last thing that I'll say in terms of how this will go, because I mean, the obvious assumption is that Trump is going to be a better debater than Joe Biden. I think that's a very fair assumption. But let's just remember that last time around, that was also the assumption. And Trump was such an asshole in the first debate. It wasn't because Joe Biden did well, but Trump was such a, like, I think he must have been taking something for COVID. I don't know.
It was very odd.
He was such a jerk and so, like, you know, just constantly cutting Joe Biden off, et cetera, that he really ruined his own prospects there and was widely seen, I think accurately so, as having lost that debate. So it's not a foregone conclusion that this is going to be better for Trump.
I saw someone say, we are going to see Manhattan Project levels of presidential stimulants for both of these candidates.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
They're already working on the cocktail.
I was going to say, whatever that cocktail is, let me know, because I want to take it.
Yeah.
All right? Like, fire me up, put it in both of the veins, and I'll take it before we start.
On Trump's side, whatever they gave him before that debate, they need to dial back about 80%, because it was way too much.
You got to jack that up, man. I would love to be in the room. It's going to be like modafinil, Adderall, like all
the chemists are going wild.
They're gonna they're gonna have like little drip beakers and things. So it's gonna be interesting.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.